Let me make a prediction. It's going to be. It's Don't be surprised if he goes all the way to number one quarterback off the board.
Forget the household names. It's time to shine a spotlight on the rising star of the draft class, J.J. McCarthy. While Caleb Williams and Drake May hogged the limelight, this Michigan sensation quietly ascended the draft boards, leaving scouts and analysts scrambling to unravel his brilliance. But what secrets lie behind his meteoric rise, and why has he remained one of the draft's best-kept secrets? Get ready to uncover the truth behind the hype. Let's take a look at the quarterback group in this year's draft. Notably, J.J. McCarthy is the youngest of the top 5 quarterbacks. Both Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix Jr. are 23 years old. The Washington Huskies quarterback played 6 seasons of college football, transferring to Washington from Indiana, while Daniels played for 5 years, first at Arizona State before heading to LSU. Caleb Williams and Drake May are both 2-year starters with additional experience, and both are older than McCarthy. Williams will turn 23 in November, while May will turn 22 in August, right before his rookie season begins. Michigan quarterback J.J. McCarthy turned 21 in January. He's the baby of the group, and because of this, many believe he has the most untapped potential. McCarthy took over as the starting quarterback for the Wolverines in 2022, following the exit of Cade McNamara. Since becoming the starter, the Wolverines have gone 28-1 and, of course, won the 2023 National Championship to crown the Jim Harbaugh era offense style. Granted, McCarthy inherited a primed and ready Michigan roster when he stepped into the starting role. They had one of the best run games in the country, talented receivers, and a defense that could stonewall just about anybody when at their best. In the system he played in, the extent of McCarthy's talent was rarely seen. He was quarterbacking a team that ran the football more often than not, taking the pressure off the signal caller a lot of the time. Look at the numbers. Bo Nix threw nearly 1,200 passes in college regular season games. Both Daniels and Penix over 900 passes. Caleb Williams threw 652. Drake May, 571. J.J. McCarthy, 393 passes. There were speculations about his return to Michigan, but with Jim Harbaugh leaving and numerous players departing for the league, McCarthy chose to do the same. Now, according to scouts, McCarthy has been the name heralded as the most underrated within league circles for a while. One scout noted the buzz around the Michigan quarterback, while highlighting that the media and the public always get to the trends a little later than those within the NFL circle. The belief is that the league loves McCarthy, and the potential upside that he might have could rival the likes of Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen coming out of college. He's somewhat mysterious, and that has the attention of scouts and coaches in the pros. At the Senior Bowl, both Bo Nix and Michael Penix overwhelmed. J.J. McCarthy elected not to go. You could read that either way. Perhaps he didn't want to expose himself to the event and get found out, or perhaps he played it perfectly to wait until the circumstances suited him to show his best work. For as long as we can remember, the top 3 quarterbacks in this year's class have been Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels, in whichever order you would place the other 2 behind Caleb. That's been generally accepted, but now it's not so clear. Not only has J.J. McCarthy risen through the ranks from a likely day 2 pick to the first half of the first round, but he's now expected to be drafted inside the top 10, with a shot at claiming one of those top 3 spots. That brings a lot of teams into play. The Minnesota Vikings are said to be one of the teams showing significant interest outside of the top 3. They'd need to trade up to get him, and McCarthy could then sit an entire year behind Sam Darnold, if that's how the Vikings opted to play his development. The Denver Broncos are in play, as are the Las Vegas Raiders, and many believe that the New York Giants would simply take him with the 6th overall pick if nobody beat them to it. Daniel Jones has 1 year left to prove his worth before the Giants move on, and McCarthy could be the answer. So, how does a guy who has played less find his name shooting into the top 3 of the draft, and at a very minimum going into the top 10? McCarthy had a great combine. At 6'2" and 220 pounds, he fits the mold as a prototypical quarterback, especially considering his mobility. Mel Kiper wrote after the draft to say, McCarthy has first-round arm talent and can beat defenses with his legs, too. He ranked third in the country in total QBR at 89.2 and completion percentage at 72.3% in 2023. I recently projected McCarthy in the middle of round 1 in my debut mock draft. Sure, he has averaged just 22.1 pass attempts per game in 2023 and only needed to complete 10 passes in the national title game, but his upside is immense. Daniel Jeremiah's original mock draft didn't even mention him in the first round. His latest mock draft had McCarthy going 8th overall to the Atlanta Falcons. Things have changed drastically, and the potential far outweighs any concerns scouts might have about him as a prospect. During the Michigan Wolverines' 2023 run to the national championship, McCarthy put together multiple strong performances. For starters, he beat out Ohio State with a 16 of 20 throwing day, completing 80% of his throws for 148 yards and a touchdown. And then in the college football playoff semifinal against Alabama, he managed one of the best games of his football career on one of the biggest stages. After a slow start, McCarthy quickly began to open up the game with his legs. The Wolverines were initially struggling to move the football against the Alabama defense, until he took off on his first designed run before evading pressure out to his left to throw a tidy completion down the left sideline to put the Wolverines in the red zone. Blake Corum got free underneath for McCarthy's first touchdown pass of the day, but that was only the beginning of it. He was under pressure for almost all of that game, but the poise and calmness he shone throughout. He was hitting receivers in stride and getting through his progressions quickly, making smart decisions and pulling the football down to run if he didn't have his man open downfield. It's those decisions and football IQ that contribute to McCarthy being so popular among NFL scouts. His mistakes are few and far between, and he's believed to be one of the smartest quarterbacks in the draft with the football in his hands. He set a new school record at Michigan in 2023 for completion percentage, completing over 72% of his attempts throughout the year. That's precision, decision-making, and taking care of the football. All things NFL coaches love. In his Michigan career, McCarthy threw for 48 total touchdowns and just 11 interceptions. In his final year with the team, he threw 4 picks in total, 3 of which came in the same game early in the season against Bowling Green. His maturity following that game was clear, and he refused to turn the football over in any of the Wolverines' crucial games down the stretch. Playing smart football when it matters the most is crucial for a successful NFL quarterback. How often have we seen turnovers kill teams' playoff hopes because of a wayward pass? McCarthy appears to be the sort of quarterback who is going to avoid those errors. He understands the mental aspect of the game and what it takes to win. Not only that, but if he doesn't have a guy open, he will gladly pull the football down and fight for yardage as a runner. His toughness running into contact is evident, although NFL teams would likely want him to avoid taking too much unnecessary contact. That said, when he needs a first down, he's got the mobility to go and get it, and he's got enough size and speed to avoid taking too much damage. His throwing mechanics are really clean, and his combine workout throwing all the routes to receivers he's never played with before looked really good. Everything he does on the field is done with precision, and while he wasn't asked to throw the football down the field much at Michigan, he proved he could throw a tidy deep ball at the combine. One of the most important things for a young quarterback, however, and something that is never talked about enough during the process, is how they lead and how they're able to gel with their teammates in the locker room. That's a trait common throughout many great quarterbacks, and J.J. McCarthy's locker room presence and leadership is up there with the best of them. We've just seen Mac Jones outcast and eventually traded by the New England Patriots because he lacked that trait that made him personable with his teammates. Bailey Zappi was watching film in another room. McCarthy will earn the respect of his teammates right out of the gate. Jim Harbaugh, of course, naturally, had nothing but praise for the quarterback, so much so that a few outrageous opinions have surfaced suggesting the Chargers trade Justin Herbert and take McCarthy with the 5th overall pick. Is it extremely unlikely? Well, yes, of course. Is it possible? Well, absolutely. Remember when Harbaugh got to San Francisco? In his very first draft, he selected Colin Kaepernick, who would go on to replace the team's then starter, Alex Smith. Harbaugh said he has talent, athleticism, it factor, and winning with numbing repetition. He went on to suggest that nobody should be surprised if McCarthy is the number one quarterback off the board. Surely Chicago wouldn't, would they? That might be a little bias from his former head coach, but the guy knows what he's talking about. Harbaugh did say that once teams get around him, start talking to him, watching him, spin it, and see what he's really about, that he would begin to climb boards. He was absolutely right about that. So with plenty of time left to go between now and the draft, could we see a major surprise at the top of the draft board? Ultimately, the NFL world would now be very surprised if McCarthy landed anywhere outside of the top 10. Several teams have their eye on him, and with the top 3 picks all but locked in on quarterbacks, there might be a late scramble for that fourth. The Chicago Bears, Washington Commanders, and New England Patriots all appear poised to draft a quarterback. All 3 have already traded last year's starter, with the Bears sending Justin Fields to Pittsburgh, and the Commanders trading Sam Howell to Seattle, while Mac Jones will now be backing up Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. 3 QBs will go in those first 3 picks, and one of them could easily be McCarthy. But if it's not, and he's still available when the Arizona Cardinals get on the clock with that 4th overall pick, expect a lot of movement. The Denver Broncos currently have no long-term plan at quarterback. The small fortune they're paying to Russell Wilson over the next 2 years also means they can't really splash on a quarterback. Drafting a promising rookie seems the way to go, but they're going to need to make a move to trade up if they want to bring McCarthy to Colorado. Minnesota is currently one of the most likely spots. They recently traded themselves into the first round a second time via a trade with Houston, giving them the ammunition they would need to make that trade up should they decide to do so. Ideally, McCarthy slips to them at pick number 11, but with the buzz surrounding him right now, I wouldn't expect that to happen. The ideal scenario for the 21-year-old Michigan quarterback is a year to sit and learn. Allow him to do what Patrick Mahomes did when he first arrived in Kansas City, and when he's ready to go a year later, unleash him on the league. There are certainly teams that can afford to be patient and do that with him, and in the long run, it might just result in the franchise nurturing his skills, getting one of the league's brightest and most talented young QBs. Where do you think J.J. McCarthy gets drafted? Is he as good as NFL scouts are currently making him out to be? Let us know in the comments.